You weren't supposed to see this, yet here you are. That means something. That means you've been pulled here by something greater than coincidence. Something is shifting, and deep inside, you can already feel it. It's not just the news, the world events, the whispers about global change. No, this is personal, this is spiritual. The passing of Pope Francis wasn't just the end of a papal reign. It was the closing of a divine chapter and the opening of another, one that involves you. And I need you to listen carefully, because the world won't tell you this. The media won't explain it. But the signs are here, and they are clear for those who have eyes to see. The Pope's last words, "Thank you for bringing me back to the square," carry a frequency beyond the surface. It wasn't a farewell. It was a spiritual transmission, and it was meant to land in the heart of someone ready to hear it. Someone who has been sensing that their time is approaching. Someone like you. What most people don't realize is that the timing of a world leader's death is not just historical, it's spiritual. Especially someone whose influence stretched across nations, whose presence held symbolic weight not only for the religious, but for the spiritually curious, the seekers, the silent watchers. When Pope Francis whispered those final words, he wasn't speaking to the crowd outside. He wasn't addressing a mass of mourners. He was sending a coded message to the few who are waking up. The square is not just a location. It's not just the plaza where the faithful gather. It is the heart of the collective human spirit, the crossroads of heaven and earth, a place of convergence. And when he said, "Thank you for bringing me back," what he was really saying was this: bring yourselves here now. Your time has come. Stand where I stood. Serve where I served. Rise where I once walked. That's not a metaphor. It's a divine instruction. The Pope didn't want to be buried above the people. He requested to remain on their level, even in death. That is spiritual humility, but it is also prophetic design. Because the new leaders, the new lights, the new voices, they are not coming from thrones or pulpits. They are rising from among the people, chosen ones. You are not above or below, you are within. And that is where your power begins. The Pope's last words were not about returning to a physical square. They were about returning to divine alignment. He was brought back to the center of the mission, the center of faith, the center of human connection. And you are being brought there too. For years, you may have wandered, searching for meaning, identity, direction, feeling out of place, misunderstood, maybe even overlooked. But this moment, the one you're in right now, is not random. It's a confirmation. The square is calling. That space, that divine intersection, is opening again. Not for the masses, but for the marked. And if your soul is responding right now, it's because you're one of them. You don't need a crown or a robe or a congregation. You need only a willing heart and a surrendered spirit. Because in the spiritual realm, leadership looks like servanthood, and power looks like presence. The Pope's departure was not a loss. It was a release of sacred energy, now flowing into those who are ready to carry the next torch. This is not the end. This is your beginning. And no one is coming to explain this on the news or in a classroom. But you already know it's real. You can feel the difference. The atmosphere has shifted. Something is unfolding behind the veil, and your soul is responding. That's why you're still listening, because something ancient is being awakened inside you. And the square, the sacred space of calling, alignment, and divine purpose, is now open. Step into it. You are ready. Most people heard his words and moved on. Just another headline, just another farewell. But chosen ones, we don't hear with the ears alone. We listen with the spirit. And what we heard in those final words, "Thank you for bringing me back to the square," wasn't just sentiment. It was code. A whisper encoded with divine instruction. If your soul stirred when you heard it, That's because it was meant for you. The Pope wasn't thanking the public for a nostalgic ride. He was acknowledging the fulfillment of a sacred circle, the completion of his mission, and the handing off of something eternal. His final words were a spiritual activation. A baton passed not to an institution, but to a people. A scattered yet divinely connected group of individuals who carry within them the fire of purpose. You are one of those people. The invitation wasn't loud. It wasn't shouted from a podium. It was released in the stillness, hidden in plain sight for those with eyes to see. He said, "Thank you." Not to a crowd, but to destiny itself, because he knew the moment had come, not just for his journey to end, but for yours to begin. The words were gentle, but the meaning was massive. Thank you for bringing me back to the square. What is the square, really? It's the center of spiritual alignment. It's the altar in the open air. It's the place where purpose and people collide. And if you felt disconnected, forgotten, or spiritually adrift, hear this now. The square is reopening, and you're being summoned to it. Not because you're perfect, but because you're ready. Ready in the eyes of heaven. Ready even if you don't feel it yet. This isn't about religious titles. This isn't about dogma or hierarchy. It's about destiny. It's about who you've always been beneath the surface. And now, with the passing of this global spiritual figure, the spotlight is no longer on the pulpit. It's on the hidden ones, the overlooked ones, the called. You're not here because you stumbled upon this moment. You were summoned. The Pope didn't return to the square to make a spectacle. He returned to the place where it all began, among the people, level with them. No elevation, no distance, just presence. That is the blueprint. That is your call. You've been sensing this for a while, that something inside of you was stirring, that your life wasn't just a string of coincidences, but a preparation. The rejection, the trials, the nights you cried out to the sky asking why, none of it was wasted. You were being forged, because only the forged can carry fire without burning out. And that fire? It's about to ignite. The spiritual transfer has begun. When the world watched a man lie in a coffin, the heavens saw a gate open and a mantle fall. And you, yes you, are being asked to pick it up. Not to replicate his journey, but to begin your own. Not as a copy, but as a continuation. You are the next chapter. You've carried this feeling your whole life, that you were meant for something more, that your voice, your insight, your compassion, it all pointed to a larger purpose. And while others may have tried to silence that knowing or distract you from it, it never left. It simply waited. It waited for now. You see, the chosen ones are not chosen because they are better. They are chosen because they are available. And now, it's your availability that matters. Are you willing to say yes, even without having all the answers? Are you ready to rise, even if your knees are shaking? Your rise won't look like the world expects. It won't come with flashing lights or applause. It will come in the quiet, in the decision to step into alignment, in the choice to trust the pull instead of the fear. And as you make that choice, something powerful begins to happen. You start to remember who you are. You remember the calling that's been echoing in your dreams. You remember the words that came to you in silence. You remember what it felt like to know before the world told you to forget. And now, the rise begins. Slowly at first, then all at once. People around you will notice a shift, even if they can't explain it. You'll speak, and the atmosphere will change. You'll walk into places and bring clarity where there was confusion, peace where there was chaos, light where there was darkness. Not because you're forcing it, but because you are it. That's what it means to be chosen. You don't chase the mission. The mission recognizes you. And now it's standing in front of you. not with a demand, but with an invitation. This rise is not just for your sake, it's for those waiting to be touched by your obedience, your courage, your authenticity. You've been prepared in secret, but now the season of hiding is over. The Pope's last act was a return to the people. Your next act is to return to yourself, to who you really are. The mission isn't out there, it's inside of you, ready to burst forth. Heaven has made its move. Now it's your turn. This is your rise. This is your time. Something is shifting. You can feel it in your bones, even if you can't quite explain it. The energy is different. The way people speak, the way time flows, the way your spirit responds to silence. It's all changing. And you've been sensing this for longer than you've admitted. That's not a coincidence. That's alignment. We are in the midst of a timeline shift, and those who are chosen, those like you, are being moved into position whether they realize it or not. The world you once knew, the life you've lived until now, it's already beginning to fade like a dream. The things you used to chase are no longer fulfilling. The distractions you once indulged in feel empty. The conversations that once entertained you now drain you. Why? Because your soul is no longer where your body used to be. You're being pulled into a higher dimension of purpose. You are stepping into divine timing. This shift isn't just about world events or spiritual headlines. It's about individual awakenings happening at a collective scale. It's about the universe and God bringing everything into divine order. And when a world figure like the Pope leaves this realm, the spiritual realm responds. Because death on earth, especially the death of a spiritually anchored leader, doesn't just end something, it activates something. His final breath was not silence. It was a signal, a ripple that went out across time and space, calling those who are ready to step into a new frequency. You may have thought your time was far off, that there were still years between where you are and where you're meant to be. But chosen ones don't follow clocks. They follow calls, and the call is now. The shift you're feeling is not just energetic, it's spiritual architecture being realigned. The Pope's passing wasn't just a funeral, it was a spiritual event, a release. And with that release comes a new invitation. You are no longer being asked to wait. You are being invited to move. And this movement doesn't start with your feet. It starts with your awareness. Pay attention to the subtle nudges, the whispers in your heart, the sudden clarity you can't explain. That's not imagination. That's divine instruction. Because when timelines shift, the ones who are ready begin to see the invisible road appear. Opportunities you thought were impossible begin to show up. The relationships that no longer serve you begin to dissolve. Your old life starts falling away. Not because you failed, but because it can't hold the new version of you that's emerging. And here's something most will miss. When timelines shift, there's always confusion for those who aren't aligned. But not for you. Because confusion is a sign that something old is trying to cling to something that has already outlived its season. You've grown past it. You've evolved. And now the divine is positioning you to walk through the doors that were always yours, if you're brave enough to step forward. The Pope returned to the square in his final moments. That square is a symbol, and symbols don't die, they transform. The square represents balance, the four corners of the earth, the structure of divine timing. And you, chosen one, are being called into the center of it, into divine flow, into holy action. But before that step can happen, something else must end. The coma. Not his coma, yours. Because whether you realized it or not, you've been asleep. Not physically, but spiritually. And like the Pope who drifted into stillness before crossing over, you've been living in a kind of spiritual unconsciousness. Existing, but not fully awake. Searching, but not fully seeing. That spiritual coma is not punishment. It was protection. It kept you hidden during a time when the world was not ready for your light. But now everything is different. You're waking up. The moment he opened his eyes one last time and spoke those final words, a vibration was released across this realm, and some of you felt it without knowing why. You felt a stirring in your chest. You felt goosebumps you couldn't explain. You felt the sudden urge to change, to rise, to speak. That was the coma breaking. That was your soul saying, "It's time." You are not who you used to be. You are no longer called to sleepwalk through life, going through the motions, pretending everything is fine while your spirit quietly screams. This is your awakening. And the evidence is already showing. Your dreams are becoming clearer. Your desires are becoming purer. Your prayers are becoming more specific. You are no longer begging God to take the pain away. You are asking Him to show you the reason for it. That's how you know the coma is ending. And as it ends, don't be surprised if people around you don't understand the shift. Don't be discouraged when old friendships dissolve or when your interests start to change. That's not isolation. It's activation. You are not meant to stay in the places that kept you asleep. You are meant to rise. The Pope's return to the square was his final appearance, but it was also your first call. You are being called to return to, not to a physical location, but to your center, to your soul, to your mission. No more slumber, no more waiting. The veil has been lifted. The spiritual coma is over. And what comes next will require your full awareness, your full presence, your full heart. This is your time to be awake, to walk with purpose, to step into alignment with the reason you were born. You are not just here to survive this shift. You are here to lead through it. Let the old fall away. Let the new emerge. The timeline has moved. The spiritual clock has struck. And you are wide awake at last. For a long time you've been watched, not just by people, but by the unseen. Heaven has been observing, waiting, measuring not your perfection, but your persistence. The watchers, those silent forces aligned with divine order, have seen enough. They've seen the way you've endured storms in silence, how you kept moving even when you were tired, broken, or misunderstood. They saw when you chose compassion instead of revenge, faith instead of fear, stillness instead of chaos. And now the time of testing is shifting into a time of revealing. Your name has been called in the Spirit. This isn't a theory or a metaphor. This is real. You've been drafted into a season where you will finally begin to see why it had to happen the way it did. Why the pain? Why the delay? Why the quiet years? Why the people who were supposed to support you turned away? None of it was random. You were being forged, not forgotten. In this hour, the light is moving. It's not sitting in temples or hidden behind ritual. It's traveling through those willing to carry it. You've been chosen not because of status or skills, but because of surrender. And now that surrender is bearing fruit, the ones who once watched you in doubt will watch you in awe. The shift isn't just internal, it's visible. You'll walk into rooms and change the atmosphere, not because you try, but because you carry a different frequency. The kind of frequency that only comes from walking through fire and choosing to rise anyway. And that's what this moment is. It's your rise. The Pope's final journey to the square was a signal to the watchers, to the heavens, to the timeline itself. The torch has been laid down, and now the ones it belongs to must come forward. You see, the time for hiding is over. This isn't the season to shrink back. This isn't the season to downplay your calling, to pretend you don't feel the weight of it, just to make others comfortable. You've been chosen for visibility, but not the kind that flatters the ego. You've been chosen to be seen so that others can recognize the divine through you. You've been through enough to carry that weight. You've been through enough to steward that kind of influence. And whether you feel ready or not, the signal has already gone out. The doors are beginning to open. The alignments are already taking place. The divine is no longer watching to see if you'll be faithful. It knows. It saw what you did when no one was looking. And now the reward is not just a blessing, it's a release of authority. Your presence will begin to carry power because it's rooted in humility. The world didn't see your process, but heaven did. And heaven has seen enough. Now it's your turn to be seen. But before you step fully into this moment, you must understand what comes next. Because the rise is not just about visibility, it's about clarity. And clarity often begins in silence. That's where Chapter 8 unfolds. In the quiet spaces, where noise fades and only the voice of truth remains. Remember how the Pope spent his final hours? Quiet dinner, rest, stillness. That wasn't weakness. That was reverence. That was spiritual preparation. And in that silence, a sacred echo was released. Not everyone could hear it, but you did. Or at least, your spirit did. You felt it like a distant drumbeat, faint but persistent. The kind that doesn't beg for attention but demands awareness. That's the echo of divine alignment. And it's still reverberating, still calling those who are listening. You don't need to shout to be powerful. You don't need a platform to be chosen. All you need is to say yes in the silence, to lean in when the world is pulling you out, to listen when no one else hears a sound. The silence is not empty. It's full of instruction. This is where the next phase of your purpose begins, not in noise, not in chaos, but in sacred stillness. When everything around you goes quiet, it's not because nothing is happening. It's because everything is happening at a higher level. You are being tuned into a different frequency. The whisper of God doesn't compete with the volume of the world. It waits until you're ready to hear. And if you've felt disconnected from the noise lately, if you've felt distant from the usual rush and roar, it's not because you're being left behind. It's because you're being called forward, into the echo, into the realm where clarity lives. That sacred space is where your next instructions will be revealed. Not through signs in the sky, but through the resonance in your own spirit. The Pope didn't speak much at the end. But when he did, those words carried a spiritual weight far beyond the moment. Because the most powerful truths are often spoken once, softly, and left to echo through time. Thank you for bringing me back to the square. That wasn't a farewell. It was a handing off. And in that silence, your calling was confirmed. Because echoes don't fade. They travel. And what you're hearing now is the same call the Watchers responded to. It's your moment to listen, to align, and to rise in the power of stillness, knowing the echo is now in you. You can feel it in your heart, can't you? That undeniable pressure building, not the kind that overwhelms, but the kind that calls. It's not anxiety, it's not fear, it's preparation. Because chosen ones don't stumble into purpose. They are prepared for it. And right now, that preparation is happening in the unseen. You are being shaped, pruned, refined, not punished, but readied. You're not being delayed. You're being aligned. And alignment takes intention. It requires your cooperation with heaven's agenda, not just your desire for a breakthrough. You're not just waiting for a moment. You are becoming the kind of vessel that can carry what's about to be poured out. And make no mistake, something is coming, a release, a shift, a divine outpouring of clarity, favor, and authority. But it won't land on those who are distracted. It will land on the ones who are prepared. This preparation isn't physical. It's spiritual. It starts with your heart, with letting go of the weight you were never meant to carry. Bitterness, shame, regret, comparison. None of those can go where you're going. The next chapter of your life is too full of promise to be polluted by old wounds. So this is the moment where you must choose to release. Release the narrative you've held onto for too long. Release the identity you built around survival. You don't need it anymore. You're not being asked to survive now. You're being called to step into your center, into your calling, into the fullness of who you are. God is not looking for someone who has it all together. He's looking for someone who is willing to be emptied of ego so they can be filled with truth, willing to be stretched so they can grow, willing to trust even when the path makes no sense to the logical mind. Because divine preparation rarely looks like progress. Sometimes it looks like quiet. Sometimes it looks like delay. But in the spiritual realm, delay is never denial. It is design. What looks like waiting is really the rearranging of time itself to accommodate your breakthrough. And while the world may tell you to hustle, to push, to force outcomes, heaven is asking you to prepare, not by doing more, but by becoming more sensitive to divine nudges, becoming more intentional with your time, becoming more surrendered in your desires, and most of all, becoming ready. Because what's coming will require your full attention. And the door that's opening, it's only wide enough for your true self to walk through. The false identity must stay behind. This is your moment of inner preparation, not to impress the world, but to impress the heavens with your willingness to be shaped. Because once you are ready, the next step will not feel forced. It will feel inevitable. It will feel like home. You will step into it with peace, not panic, with boldness, not confusion. Because you'll know, deep in your bones, that you were made for it. Every trial, every tear, every silent season of waiting. It was all preparation. And now, chosen one, it's time to step into what has always been yours. The square is waiting, and not the physical one in Rome. The square that lives in the center of your life, the sacred space where heaven meets earth inside you. It is the inner sanctuary where your soul knows its truth, the place where your calling and your courage meet. That square is yours now. You've been brought to it through fire, through faith, through silence, and through surrender. And now, it's time to stand in it, not with hesitation, not with doubt, but with certainty. Because this is not just a symbolic moment. It is a divine appointment. You are not standing here by chance. You were summoned. The Pope's final return to the square was never just about him. It was about a torch being passed in spirit to those who were ready to receive it. And you, chosen one, are the fulfillment of that silent prophecy. You are the one the silence prepared, the one the darkness refined, the one the echo reached. And now, your voice matters more than ever, not because it's louder, but because it's real. The world is starving for authenticity, for light, for hope that isn't shallow. And your life, your presence, is the answer. As you take your place in that spiritual square, something powerful happens. You become a mirror, a reflection of heaven to the people around you. And without needing to convince anyone, without needing to prove anything, people will begin to see the shift. They will feel it. Because chosen ones don't have to announce their power. It radiates. The way you speak, the way you move, the way you listen, even your stillness. It will carry a presence that awakens something in others. You're not just stepping into your calling for yourself. You're stepping into it for everyone who will be changed by your obedience, for the lives attached to your yes. So stand tall in that square, not with arrogance, but with holy confidence, the kind that comes from knowing you were called, not created at random, the kind that comes from years of hidden preparation. You are not here to wait anymore. You are here to lead, to love, to build, to heal, to speak, and most of all, to be. The square is no longer just the Pope's final stop. It is your starting point. And from this place your mission begins, not in theory, but in action. You were chosen. You were called. And now the only thing left to do is rise.